See, the thing is, and this is the big secret, resources don't matter if you already have them. Now, Jeffrey Canada, who's done a wonderful job in creating the Harlem Children's Zone, has 2 charter schools. And he decided to call them the Harlem Promise Academy because when he got his first class together, he said, I promise you, if you come to my school, you will go to college. In the Harlem Promise Academy, there are small classes. The average class size is 15 with 2 teachers in the room. Wraparound services. The children, if they do well and they get high test scores, they can get rewards like a trip to the Galapagos. Disney World, here we are. However, having promised all the children that they would go to college, in the first class he brought in, which was in 6th grade, they didn't get their scores up in 6th grade. They also didn't get them up in 7th grade. And at the end of 8th grade, he called the students in because his board of trustees told him he had to. And he said, I'm really very sorry. I don't think you're the right class for this school. And he threw the entire class out and started over, did a do-over. Could you do that in your school? He sent them back to the public schools. That's where they go when they don't make it. And they didn't make it, and he broke his promise to them. But let me tell you, because the movie gives you the impression that, resources don't matter, poverty don't matter, and here's 5 charter schools that get incredible results. Well, when the scores came out this past June, in one of his schools, only 40% of the kids met the state standards, and the other one, only 50% met the state standards. And among the 7th graders who had been in the school 3 years, only 15% met the state standards. With all those resources, I don't know what was happening there, but they're just focused on testing because that's all that matters is the testing. And it turns out that you shouldn't overpromise. That's the problem with these charter schools is that they have a way of getting rid of the kids that don't meet their expectations and sending them back to the public schools. So another of the schools that's presented in this movie as being a school that gets amazing results is called the Seed Charter School in Washington, D.C. It's a boarding school. And when I wrote the review, I said I looked at their website. They say they have a 96%, of the kids who graduate, 96% are accepted in a 4-year college. And I thought, wow, that's impressive. They were featured on 60 Minutes, and I thought, now here's a school that really does meet the promise. And, but you know what? It costs $35,000 per year for each student, which suggests that resources do matter. But then after I wrote my article, somebody contacted me and said, hey, look at this. They start in 7th grade with 140 kids, and this June they only had 34 graduates. They had a 75% attrition rate, but all 34 are going to go to a 4-year college. No, 96% of the 34. So, you can match that too, and you're not spending $35,000 a year. Now, there's a charter chain that's called Green Dot, which has gotten a lot of publicity. They took over a public school in Los Angeles, and they said they could turn it around. And the first year, they raised $15 million to beautify the campus and provide extra security. The test scores didn't move very much, but here was the secret with Green Dot. They had to get the teachers in the school, a majority of them, to vote to turn the school, a public school, into a charter. And they persuaded the principal and the teachers to vote for them. They took over, and then they fired most of them. Not fair. So all of our public schools are struggling in the country with the burden of No Child Left Behind, with this ridiculous mandate that 100% of the children will be proficient or your school might be closed. That's ridiculous. It's impossible. No nation has ever had 100% proficiency. And now, after all these years, 8 years of No Child Left Behind, no state is anywhere close to 100% proficiency. The closest is Massachusetts, and they're at 50%. And even being the highest performing state in the nation, half of the schools in the state of Massachusetts have not met AYP. I mean, this is just a ridiculous law. And what No Child Left Behind, which has done to our schools, which you've all experienced, is a dramatic narrowing of the curriculum. And I see articles from the Florida press all the time that my friends send me where they say they're dropping science, they're cutting the arts, they're cutting physical education, they're cutting recess, they're cutting Geography, well, I mean, like, at some point, all you'll be left with is reading and math and basic skills. And that's not right. That's not good education. So, you know, the more emphasis we put on testing and accountability, the less there will be of creativity, of originality, of critical thinking, of problem solving, all of it thrown aside. What we can now see with No Child Left Behind, and it's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, was to say, you know what, we haven't seen, nationally, we haven't seen any progress in reading. 8th grade reading scores are the same now as they were in 1998. And on math, the progress was greater before No Child Left Behind. And Florida is just one of the outlier states. You've made more progress than most of the others. Now we get to the, this program called Race to the Top. It's wrong. I'm sorry you won. I'm sorry that my state won. Because you know what, there are schools in New York who've told me, we're going to have to comply with all kinds of regulations and mandates, and we're going to get $8,000 over 4 years. It's going to cost us a lot more to comply than they're giving us. This is crazy. Well, here's the problem with Race to the Top. There are many problems. The first is federal aid was passed by the Congress in 1965 based on need. The money was to go to the children who had the greatest needs. It was not a race. It was not a competition that would be won by states. It was a formula that said where poor children are, that's where the federal money goes. So now we're in this race, and the race has caused many states, yours and many others, to say we have to have more charter schools. We have to have more evaluation of teachers by scores. So let me tell you about what the research says so that you can see just how ridiculous all this is. Charter schools. There are today about 5,000 charter schools. By now there may be 5,500. They enroll 3% of the children in the nation. It's 1.5 million children. More than 95% of the charters in the nation are non-union. They're non-union because they were organized by people who don't want collective bargaining. They have a business model, and their business model is to have young teachers who burn out after 2 or 3 years, just like what they do in New Orleans, and then they're gone, and it keeps the cost down. Their business model also, and because of No Child Left Behind, they're incentivized to not have so many kids or to reduce the number of kids with special needs, to reduce the number of kids who are limited English proficient. And so we see a lot of that all over the country. Now, in terms of the evaluations, one of the evaluations was done by, it's called CREDO, C-R-E-D-O. It was an organization at Stanford University, funded by the Walton Family Foundation. Everybody thought it was going to be very pro-charter, pro-choice, and much to everyone's surprise, it came out, having looked at achievement in half the charter schools in the nation, almost 2,500 of them. It found that only 1 out of 6 charter schools was outperforming a traditional regular public school, 1 out of 6. It found that 37%, which is almost 2 out of 6, were underperforming. We're getting inferior results as compared to the neighborhood public school, and the rest there was no difference. So the big investment in charter schools is very risky because these are not good odds. Only 1 out of 6 will be better, and 37% will be worse than the regular public schools. Then there was an evaluation done that came out just this past summer from the Mathematica Policy Research. It was published by the U.S. Department of Education. It was a study of charter middle schools. And this was its key conclusion, and I quote, "On average, charter middle schools that hold lotteries are neither more nor less successful than traditional public schools in improving student achievement, student behavior, and school progress. Participating schools had no significant impacts on math or reading test scores either a year or 2 years after students applied, or on other measures of academic progress such as attendance or grade promotion, or on student conduct either within or outside of the school." So it's a wash. On the National Assessment of Educational Progress, charters have been compared to regular public schools since 2003. So 03, 05, 07, 09, charters have never outperformed regular public schools, not for black students, not for Hispanic students, not for low-income students, and not for urban students. It's a wash. So we have with Race to the Top a few other items that are going to have a huge impact on the country. One of them is the definition of what it means to turn around a low-performing school. You're given 4 models. They're all punitive models. In all 4 models, you start by firing the principal. And in other models, you start by firing the principal and the teachers, or you close the school, or you turn the school into a charter school or privatize it. Those are the models. Well, guess what? This is all modeled on Chicago. And it didn't work in Chicago. It's never worked anywhere. When you close a school, unless it's a school that has dramatic under-enrollment, when you close a school, you close a part of the community. You tear the heart out of a community when you close it. There was a book that came out earlier this year by Anthony Breich, who's the president of the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, and it's called Organizing for School Improvement, The Lessons from Chicago. And he said the schools that improved had strong social networks. What he meant by strong social networks was not Facebook. He was talking about the connections among parents and teachers and administrators in the community. He was talking about surrounding children with people who care about them and know their names and their faces, and who will call home when they have a problem, and where people get together around the children and set values and expectations for them so that they know that they're cared about, and what happens to them will be known, and they'll be surrounded with caring and love. No school was ever improved by closing it. And, you know, I feel kind of sad today because yesterday the mayor of my city announced that he's closing 47 more public schools. This has been an ongoing process for the last 8 years of closing down public schools, breaking them up, and then closing some more schools. On the subject of merit pay, which is a big part of Race to the Top as well as Waiting for Superman,